the waiting room altogether?
Oh, yes.
And let me close out this chat. And let me close out this chat. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So good to be with you all. I am super excited for this presentation. I hope that you are excited for this, not presentation, this discussion that we're going to have tonight as it relates to, should I get the COVID vaccine? That's what we want to answer tonight for you. Some of you may be wondering, I'm sure you've seen it in the news. I'm sure you may know someone who's actually gotten the vaccine by now, and you're debating on whether or not you should do it as well. We're going to talk about it. And I want to let you know that as we go through tonight, the success of this program is going to hinge on your participation. But before we get into the program, before we get into the discussion, I want to ask you to bow your head with me as we pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for another day of life. I thank you so much for this time where we can gather together to reason together. I pray that you will give us a spirit of unity. I pray that you will be with each and every panelist, the words of their mouth. I pray that you will be with me in the questions that I'm going to ask, the questions that I'm going to receive. May this program, this discussion lead someone to at least have a deeper understanding about the decision that they need to make as it relates to this vaccine that is being offered. Lord, there's a lot of concern. There's a lot of information and even misinformation. And we want to make sure that everyone leaves informed with the right information to make the right decision. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen and amen. I am Pastor Keith Hackle Jr. I have the privilege of pastoring here in St. Louis at the Agape Seventh-day Adventist Church. Also, if you've seen the flyer, I have the privilege of serving as the Adventist Community Services Director for this conference. And one of the panelists is also the co-host or co-brainchild behind this discussion, Dr. Denise Johnson, who with her husband serves as family life leader for this conference. And if you saw the flyer, she's also a doctor. So ready for this conversation as well. I want to kind of give you all some information as to how we even got here. Want to give you some information as to how you can participate. Want to also let you know that your friends and family members you can send them an invitation right now. This is on Facebook Live. This is on YouTube. So we want as many individuals as desire to be a part of this discussion tonight. And you will have an opportunity to participate. Don't start sending me your questions now, but you can send in your questions. And I'm gonna give you the number, and I'll do this a couple of times as we go through tonight. 513 area code 238-6257. 513-238-6257. You will be able to send in questions. I will field those questions and then give them to the panelists, and we will discuss them. I want to give an opportunity for each of our panelists to introduce themselves briefly. Then I'll kind of give a little bit more background as to how this conversation came to be. And then we will get into our discussion for tonight. So on my left, we're going to do ladies first. So I see Dr. Johnson first. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go left to right.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad that I could be with you. I am Dr. Denise Johnson. As Pastor Hackle said, I have the pleasure of serving the Central States Conference along with my husband as the Family Ministries Directors. We're happy to be here. I am a practicing pediatrician in St. Louis, a faculty member at Washington University School of Medicine, as well as being on the medical staff at Barnes Jewish Hospital, as well as St. Louis Children's Hospital. I'm glad to be able to be with you this evening.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jill Kolchinsky. I'm a nurse practitioner at Mercy. I am a family nurse practitioner, and I did my undergrad at the University of Missouri in Columbia and then did my master's degree at Emory University. I've been with Mercy for approximately 7 years now in an internal medicine office, and I love it. And I'm so excited about this vaccination. And I really am excited that Pastor Hackle gave me the opportunity to talk to you guys about it.
Last but not least.
Everybody, I'm excited to be here. I'm Isaiah Rolle. I am a resident at Emory University, neurology resident, a longtime friend of Pastor Hackle. Got a wife and 2 little girls just next door. And I spent my time, first Oakwood, shouts out to Oakwood University as undergrad. I did my PhD in neuroscience at the University of Cincinnati. And so I spent time doing scientific research in the lab. And then after that, I went to medical school and I'm a neurology resident. So I'm a senior neurology resident at Emory University and excited to be here and kind of discuss, what you all are thinking and hoping that we kind of be helpful.
Thank y'all so much. And so I'll kind of, again, I want to set the scene as to how we even got here with this discussion. I was at the doctor's office. I had a conversation with NP Kolchinsky, and she was saying to me, she said, hey, listen, I need your help. We need your help. We're trying to get to 70%. And whatever I need to do to kind of help facilitate that, I'll ask any questions. I got any pamphlets, anything your people need, let me know. And I was honest with her. I said, well, I need you to know something. Two things. First of all, I try not to tell my members to do anything because if it goes well, great. If it goes bad, I'm in trouble. But I also said, hey, listen, our culture, and if we can just be honest for a moment, this is a regional conference. While we are open to and welcome individuals from all backgrounds, the makeup of our conference is largely people of color. And I said, MP Kolchinsky, listen, our people have a problem with trusting vaccines. So it's not going to be easy for me to convince. And she said, hey, whatever I can do, I said, you can come and sit at the table. And so I left that appointment. I got in my car. I called Dr. Johnson. I said, hey, I just had this conversation in the doctor's office about this vaccine. What's your feelings about the vaccine? And she told me her feelings about the vaccine. I trust her opinion, but I still picked up the phone and I called Dr. Rolle. And I said, hey, man, listen, because here's the thing, and they each represent a certain segment that is important for this conversation. Dr. Johnson deals with families on a regular basis. Dr. NP Kolchinsky represents the community, right? And so it's important for her to understand where we're coming from and why we feel and why we're struggling to get to certain numbers as it relates to the 70%. And then Dr. Rolle represents the younger generation. So I wanted to know, I said, well, maybe older individuals are thinking about doing this, but maybe it's not the young people. So I reached out to Dr. Rolle and he was like, yep, I just got it yesterday. So I said, well, here's the thing. We got to talk about this because as a pastor, I don't feel comfortable telling anybody what they need to do, but I'll facilitate the conversation. And that's what we're doing tonight. Before we get into the first question, and I want to let you know again that if you want to send in a question, something piqued your interest, something you want to know, you can send that in by dialing 513 or texting 513-238-6257. Again, 513-238-6257. Before we get into the discussion, I got a couple questions already ready to go. I want to share something because there is a concern. We are members, many of us are members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and some people have wondered, do Adventists believe in getting vaccines? And I want to share with you, as I did my research, something that I found an interesting statement from 2015. And you can find this at nadadventist.org if you want to go and see this for yourself. But here's the statement that was released as it relates to vaccines. As such, we encourage responsible immunization and vaccination and have no religious or faith-based reason not to encourage our adherents to responsibly participate in protective and preventative immunization programs. We value the health and safety of the population, which includes the maintenance of herd immunity. This is 2015. We are not the conscience of the individual church member and recognize individual choices. These are exercised by the individual. The choice not to be immunized is not and should not be seen as the dogma nor the doctrine of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I think that is important for us as we go through tonight. There is no desire to tell anyone that they have to do anything, but there is a desire to make sure that we walk away from this conversation informed and able to make a conscious decision. And so with that being said, we're going to go into the first question. Y'all ready to go?
Ready.
All right, here we go. First question. And this relates to what I've heard and what other individuals have shared about how we can actually avoid needing the vaccine. The understanding of many is that the issue with the vaccine is needing our immune system to be strong enough to fight off COVID-19. So if it's an issue with our immune system being strong enough, is it possible to just boost my immune system by taking things like vitamin D, increasing my vitamin D, as opposed to needing to get the vaccine? Couldn't I just boost my immune system and not worry about getting the vaccine at all? That's the first question on the table.
I can start. I think it's a great question. My initial response is that I think it's always a great idea to boost your immune system. I would never tell you not to work on that. I would definitely say, number one, why not do both? Why does it have to be an either or? I think first of all, we should all work on, whatever methods you know of, or you have experienced, or your doctor's telling you, or your family has, traditions have taught you on how to boost your immune system. Is definitely something you should do. I think that now that we have a virus or a disease in this particular case, and we have specifics that we know about it, the more specific that we can get, why not be specific? And so, I think it's not really a one or the other. I think it's that when you have the information, we want to use as much as we possibly can to kind of get specific. And when you don't have as much information, then you have to be broad, And so when you say boost your immune system, that means boost the entire thing for a lot of different reasons. When you have a very particular bug or a particular virus, the more information we have about how it works, and the more that we can kind of target that and boost your immune system in just that specific way, then I say do that. So my answer honestly would be to kind of do both.
Do both. Okay. Anybody else want to give input on that?
Yeah, I would just add to that we don't have information about, whether or not boosting your immune system can prevent COVID. I think it's a great idea to boost your immune system through exercise, through healthy eating, through taking vitamin C or D. But we don't know if that will actually prevent you from getting the virus. I've seen several patients who have a very healthy lifestyle, who, have had really severe cases of COVID. And we know that the vaccine has a 95% effective rate at preventing COVID. And in the case of Moderna, the 5% that did get COVID had cases that were not severe, requiring hospitalization. So we know these vaccinations prevent serious illness. We don't know, we don't know if, vitamin D itself can prevent COVID.
Gotcha.
I'd like to just chime in. I spoke with a lot. I came to our conference back in April, right before Easter, or right during the Easter weekend, as you'll remember. And we talked about the ways that we could boost our immune system. We talked about the principles of New Start. And that's all we had at that point in time. We asked that God would protect us, that we would do the things that we need to do: good nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, being temperate with what we eat, getting air, fresh air, and rest, and trusting in God, decreasing our stress level. But remember what we did? We prayed that God would move this pandemic. And I believe that this vaccine is definitely God's answer to our prayer. So yes, continue with our healthy lifestyles, but God has answered our prayers. We need to seriously consider this vaccine, looking at the pros and the cons, as we will do tonight.
Okay. All right. So now you mentioned back in February, March, April, we were just saying, hey, do some preventative maintenance or increase, boost your immune system and things like that. And then all of a sudden, we start hearing about this vaccine coming out, right? And then this vaccine kind of hit us in a short amount of time. This leads to the second question for tonight. How can we trust the vaccines when it normally takes years to develop vaccines? And this one was developed in such a short amount of time.
Can I piggyback? Oh, go on, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Dr. Johnson.
One of the things that we need to know is how vaccines started. A lot of times we're very superstitious about vaccines, especially as a people, that we believe that this was a conspiracy against us. But I learned something really interesting just recently. Most of us remember Edward Jenner. He was the guy in England who first smallpox vaccine from the cowpox. But what we don't know as a people is that he actually had his start from a slave named Onesimus. Onesimus was the slave of a gentleman who in Boston. This gentleman was Cotton Mather. Cotton Mather was the son of the founder of Harvard University. And so when there was a big outbreak of smallpox in Massachusetts, Onesimus told his master that back in Africa, one of the things that they did when they had diseases, they would scrape someone who had a pox, and they would use a thorn in their body, and the person would not get a smallpox. Well, this gentleman did it to himself and someone else, and they sure enough, they didn't have a severe episode of smallpox. Of course, there was a lot of conspiracy theories about that. And so the other slave owners thought that there was an uprising from the slaves to try to kill off the slave masters because they were going to inject this thing. People who used it, they survived. That was the beginning of immunizations. Immunizations have changed over the years, but the immunization that we have with COVID-19 is a different technology. It is used by a substance called messenger RNA, which does something very unique. There was a platform ahead of time, and so it was very easy to get to that point. But I know that Dr. Rolle is that's one of his areas of research. And so I'm going to lend the floor to him to tell us a little bit more specifically about this vaccine.
Yeah, sure.
So tell us, Dr. Rolle, they developed this in a short amount of time. Should we trust it? It's too quick.
I think that this is obviously one of the biggest questions I've heard and that everyone is asking. Like Dr. Johnson mentioned, just the history of vaccinations is very important. But I'd say specifically with coronavirus, you all may know, Dr. Corbett, is a Black female who was, one of the lead researchers behind developing the vaccine. If you read about her, my wife shared a video with me, not too long ago, to kind of just having her talk and watching her talk. You'll learn, there's a couple things I want to mention. Number one, coronaviruses are a thing that have been around for a long time that we've known about. If you open a textbook in medical school or biology class in 6th grade, you'll hear about coronaviruses or flaviviruses or all kind of viruses. So coronaviruses are not new. Coronavirus causes the common cold. It's one of the viruses that it does. And it causes other things more severe like SARS. You guys have heard of SARS, and you all have heard of MERS. MERS is the Mediterranean coronavirus. SARS is the really severe respiratory virus. These are all done by coronaviruses. So I say that to say that Dr. Corbett, is one of the main researchers, but in this case, she's a lead behind this particular vaccine. She's been working on coronavirus vaccines for at least 7 years now, specifically. So the idea that the coronavirus vaccine has been developed in just, 12, 14 months, maybe less, is actually not true because she's been working on a coronavirus vaccine for at least 7 years herself. It's just that this particular coronavirus is different. When something changes by one little protein or changes by one little piece of, sort of RNA, something very, very specific scientific, then you get approached with a new problem. But the method of delivery has always been there for the several years. And the ideas and the concept behind how to actually make your body see this protein and develop antibodies and give yourself that immune boost is actually not new. And so, she works at the NIH, which is our National Institutes of Health. They had been partnering with Moderna for years now, and they've already had mRNA as the way to introduce this into your body. And the idea of how to make your body produce immune response is now also not new. And so, although the pandemic just hit us, like bricks, and we've spent this last 2020, just trying to make it through and rush to development, I think it's really important to just, for me, to be comforted by the fact that the technology really isn't new at all. And certainly the pandemic, we all have experienced it around the entire planet. Pandemic just means just that the entire world is sort of suffering. And so the emergency, nature of it means that people push to get things done as quickly to market as they possibly can. So I think just, if you understand that a little bit, you'll realize that the time to make the vaccine is actually not as short as we think it is. Although, yes, the pandemic is new, and trying to kind of make this particular one has required like some finesse of, okay, let's get this particular coronavirus and let's try to knock it out. And that's kind of how it came about so soon, as it were.
Yeah, I would just echo Dr. Rolle as well. This messenger RNA technology, they've been working to develop flu vaccines with it, the Ebola virus, and as well as Zika as well. So they've been working to try to make something of it. It's just, the severity of the pandemic has caused things to speed up. And Moderna and the NIH has gotten quite a bit of money from the government to make things happen a lot quicker. Normally, these trials take time because it takes money to set up these sites. It takes money to recruit volunteers. And all of that happened in a way faster time frame because the government realized and recognized, the severity of this pandemic and said, we need to get things going as fast as possible. So they gave, very large sums of money to be able to get these trials going and to make things happen faster. But the actual timeframes of the studies, they haven't skipped any steps in the various, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials. They haven't skipped any of those steps. They've recruited, 30,000 people for, these studies. And, and part of the reason why we got the information so quickly is because there's so much of this virus circulating. If we hadn't seen the numbers of cases that we had seen in September, October, November, when they were collecting the data, we wouldn't have the data so quickly. But because there were, every day last month, we're seeing, 150, 200,000 new cases of coronavirus every day, they're able to get this data so much faster than they would for any other, illness. So, I realize that the time frame sounds quick, but when you think about, the amount of money that's been put into this research is just unprecedented. And the way that the FDA has been able to move things very quickly, and the way that the virus has spread so fast, and they've been able to catch that data so quickly has been something that has, sped up the time frame enormously.
And Dr. Johnson said something, and I'm getting so many messages. Dr. Johnson said something just for all of us to understand. Like, this isn't just affecting a certain neighborhood or a certain city. She shared with me in one of our discussions, like, this is affecting the whole world. Right. And so now you have a more concerted effort to find a solution and to move forward with a solution to this problem, because it's affecting so many people. And I say that because some people think that this is a ploy or an attack on a certain demographic of people, and that's why we shouldn't take the vaccine. But it is important to understand that this is impacting the whole world. Dr. Johnson, you were going to say something, and then I want to get to another question because people want to understand the vaccine.
Yes, I wanted to, that was what I was going to, but just to kind of follow up, yes, there was a lot of money given into the vaccine research, but you have to remember, not each of the programs received those money. So it's not like, oh, they got paid off. Both of the vaccines are wonderful vaccines, but Pfizer actually wasn't part of Operation Warp Speed. It actually, they decided that it was important enough to control the pandemic that they were investing. Now, I'm sure they're getting paid now, but the reality of it is that they didn't do it. So we can't say that they just hurried along so they could get the money, because a lot of us tend to think that things are suspicious, but that didn't happen with that vaccine. The other thing is that we do need to know that even though I talked about smallpox being particles of the bacteria into your skin, this is nothing like what is happening now. There is no part of the coronavirus that is in the vaccine. That is what's so wonderful about this vaccine, is that the messenger RNA technology is so much different from anything that we've had before, but it's such a safe thing. And I'm sure Pastor Hackle was going to ask us, well, what is different about that?
Well, yeah. Since you opened the door, here we go. So here's the thing, and just to let everybody watching know, you can send in questions to 513-238-6257. And we'll try to get your questions answered. And I told the panelists this before we started. The difference between what we're trying to do tonight and a lot of the other programs that are going on is a lot of them are very high level. You have to be in the medical field to understand where those individuals are coming from. I believe it's important for this thing to be brought down to a level where we can all understand. And so I tried to research this, and I tried to give this to the doctors. I'm gonna give them what I said again, and then y'all gonna clear it up for me, please. So as it relates to mRNA, that's not anything strange as it relates to our body, right? Our body's familiar with mRNA.
Every cell has it.
Every cell has it. Okay. And but here's the thing with mRNA, at least from my studies, right? We'll see if this qualifies me for some type of PhD or something like that. From my studies, mRNA is in the body, but it breaks down over time, right? Yes, no, potentially. It's there for a period of time. Help me out. What am I missing?
Okay.
Briefly.
I'm just going to say it quick. mRNA is messenger RNA.
Yes.
If we go back to our 8th grade, 9th grade biology classes, messenger RNA is one of the nucleotides, one of the substances in each one of our cells that tells our cells how to make protein.
Okay. And so now we have this vaccine. Now I'm getting to, hopefully y'all are following with me, those of you that are watching. So we have this vaccine, and you heard each panelist say that the mRNA is involved in this vaccine, or it is an mRNA vaccine, right? And so we're introducing what our body is familiar with already, right? We're introducing that into the body through this vaccine. Yes?
Yes.
No? Okay. And so now it gets in our body, and the purpose of this mRNA is to jumpstart our immune system to get us ready to fight against this sickness that may be coming our way. Is that correct? Or am I missing something? Help us understand. What does this vaccine do? Why is it important that you all keep saying mRNA is being introduced to our body? Because a lot of people are asking the question, what's in the vaccine? What is it about this particular vaccine that makes it okay for me to have introduced into my body?
I think NP Kolchinsky had some stuff by mRNA last time I heard.
Yeah, I'll start then. So messenger RNA that we're getting from the vaccine actually has the directions on how to make that spike protein, which is very specific to this coronavirus, COVID-19. And so the messenger RNA delivers that message basically of how to make the spike protein to the cell. And once the cell receives that message, it makes that spike protein. And then our body recognizes that spike protein on the surface of our cells as foreign, and it makes antibodies to that spike protein. Having those antibodies already available makes it easy for us when we get in contact with COVID-19 to stop it in its tracks at the very start, before it starts replicating and causing any symptoms, so that you have no idea you've even come in contact with COVID-19. And that's kind of how it works. And that messenger RNA gets degraded fairly soon after it's delivered that message. It does not enter into the nucleotide of the cell and change our DNA in any way. I know that's been a concern for some people, but that's how this messenger RNA vaccine works. Okay.
Anybody else want to add to that?
The one thing I kind of want to add is what I think this vaccine is actually kind of cool. This technology is that if you know about some other vaccines, a few of them are made with sometimes a live virus, a part of the live virus that's kind of weakened a little bit. And so it exposing your body to that live virus, now you're like, oh, that's what that is. And your body now responds to it with some sort of protein antibodies to fight against it when it comes to you, and for real. Okay. Or sometimes they give you a piece of a dead virus, and the little piece of the dead virus has just enough signature or just enough protein to make you cause antibodies. This is kind of different because it's actually kind of cool. They're not giving this vaccine doesn't have any part of an actual virus inside of it. So it's from the standpoint of, I think, people's concerns, like my concerns as well sometimes about, you're gonna give me the disease. No, like, this is even different in that there's no piece of the virus. It's actually just the message to make the protein, to make the antibodies that you need to kind of fight off of it. And I kind of gave an example for some folks, who might like even understand like video games. And I kind of say, like, back in the day when I used to play like Nintendo and Mario, sometimes we used to get cheat codes. If you remember, you get to the first screen, the menu screen, and you enter the like select,
Yes.
and then press up, down, left, right, up, down, A, B, C, D.
ABACC. Yes, sir.
All of a sudden, now you have limited armor, or you can't die. You have multiple lives, right?
Mhm.
The difference, the situation there is that you didn't actually have to play the game to get used to it, to know how to get good at it. You just got a cheat code, and now all of a sudden, you demand in the game. This is kind of what the mRNA vaccine is like. You didn't need to experience COVID to start to learn how to fight against it, or get a piece of the virus and some vaccine to kind of fight against it. Instead, essentially, you just got a cheat code. They're like, hey, here's the cheat code, and now you know that if you see this thing, this is how you're gonna fight it. And so I think that's kind of cool, and that you can kind of sort of skip those steps and just teach your body how to recognize something that it's never seen before, and hopefully you never have to see it.
Dr. Johnson, you have anything you want to add to that?
I think that they described it very well. What we need to know is that it's nothing living in there. It's nothing that it's just telling our body what to do. And I think that that's so neat that you could have technology, that it's just so wonderful to know how God made us, that he made us, that our bodies can protect itself. And this is just jump-starting our body protecting itself. Our bodies will make antibodies, but it will take a little bit longer for our bodies to make antibodies. But when you get a vaccine, you kind of get an early warning system. Your body already has the soldiers ready to fight. And so you don't have to get the infection, develop soldiers, and then fight. The soldiers are already ready to fight. If you should get in contact with whatever the substance, the disease that you're trying to fight, in this case, COVID-19, your body doesn't have to learn how to make the antibodies. The antibodies have already been made. Gotcha.
And so if I could just sum up everything that you all said, it's not, I'm not injecting myself with the disease or anything like that. I'm receiving something that my body already is familiar with, messenger RNA, and I'm getting ready just in case I experience it. It almost sounds to me like this vaccine is insurance, right? Like just in case something happens, I'm ready to fight because I've received. Okay, all right. So here's the question. Here's the question that was asked, and then we'll come back to this point because there's another question I had as I was researching this. What are the side effects? Multiple people have reached out and said, what are the side effects that they should anticipate if they decide to get the vaccine?
I got my COVID vaccine about 2 weeks ago. Day one, I had absolutely no side effects. I was stuck with a 24 gauge needle, which is a little bit larger than some of the needles that we're used to, but it didn't hurt very much. I didn't have pain that day. The next morning, I had a little bit of muscle pain, no fever, no nausea, no vomiting, no diarrhea. That was my experience. The next day, my arm was a little bit sore. By day 3, I wasn't having pain at all. I'm moving my arms just fine. No problems. I'm due for my second shot next Friday. And I'm looking, I will see what, if some people say that after the second shot, you might have a little bit more side effects, but that's not uncommon to any other vaccine. Some of it is just having a needle placed into your muscle. Our muscles have a reaction, has a degree of inflammation that happens anytime it's penetrated. You could potentially give someone a shot with saline, salt water, or sugar water, and they could have a similar reaction.
Gotcha. Dr. Rolle, I know you got the shot. tell us about your side effect. And then MP Kolchinsky, I think you said you were waiting for, you got a baby on the way, right?
Yeah, I'll
Congratulations.
share with you guys the research I've done around that. If any of the followers out there who are watching this are concerned because of pregnancy or trying to become pregnant or breastfeeding or those situations.
Yeah, that is don't let us leave without hearing, because that's one of the questions that's on the board.
Okay.
Should a woman that's pregnant get it? Side effects, tell us any side effects real quick, Dr. Rolle.
Really quickly, I have gotten both doses of the vaccine at this point. Similar to Dr. Johnson, the first time I had some mild soreness on my arm, and the second time around, a few weeks later, I actually had soreness in the arm and nothing different. I definitely think that people could expect a range of a mild headache to some muscle soreness, maybe some joint pain, and in some cases, people get sort of a fever. It has been somewhere between like 6, maybe 12 hours kind of lasting. And so everyone's immune system is built a little bit differently. Everyone's wired a little bit differently. And so the way that you respond, how you respond may be a little bit different, but those are pretty much the common ones that we've seen. And that's kind of my experience, has pretty much just been just pain at the site of injection for about a day.
Gotcha. So I want to do a brief commercial real quick. If you want to ask a question, I got my phone here. There are questions coming in, but if you want to ask a question, you can send it in via text 513-238-6257. Again, 513-238-6257. Before we go to that question, I said I wanted to come back to individuals have asked, and many of you mentioned you got one shot, you're going to get another. Is it okay? Like, let's say the line is shorter in the Pfizer line than it was in the Moderna line the first time I went. And so is it okay for me to jump over and get, listen, I just need 2 shots. Is it all right for me to, as long as I get a total of 2 shots, does it matter if I have on a Nike shoe and a Reebok shoe? Can't I just say I got on 2 shoes? Should I stay with the same brand, or can I switch? Yes?
You should stay with the same brand.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't usually wear like Nikes on one foot and Reeboks on the other. I just kind of stick with, so that, just keep it the way that it was designed.
Gotcha. All right, so I want to get back to something, because I want us to understand. You all said a lot in the presentation of what's in the vaccine. You mentioned the crowns and things of that nature. You mentioned mRNA. And again, this is just me trying to really put all of the pieces together. The mRNA is already in our body. You all mentioned that, it breaks down from time to time. This shot is mRNA. And I want to be as honest as we possibly can with our constituents, with our friends and family members, so that we can really be ready for whatever the future looks like. If I get this shot and it's mRNA and it eventually potentially breaks down, we don't know how long the proteins will last. Is it possible that I'll need to get the shot again at some time in the future? Is it possible that this could become just like the flu shot, where I have to get a shot potentially every year as we're combating different strains that are coming out and things of that nature?
To be honest, we don't know. The actual answer is we don't know. Right now, we know that the mRNA does break down, disintegrates within weeks of that. However, that's not the component part. The part that we need to aware is how long do the antibodies stay? People who have had actual COVID infections, they have been found to have antibodies for at least 3 months. I have a friend who probably is on the line right now who had COVID in the summer, in June. She was tested in December. She still had antibodies. How long those antibodies will last, we don't know. The same way, if we have antibodies made from the vaccine, we don't know how long it will last. The antibodies, we know the mRNA is going to be disintegrated. That's expected. But the antibodies, how long will they last? We don't know the answer to that yet. It might be, but it's like the flu shot. You might have to get it every year, but what we need to know right now is that we need to have herd immunity. We need to have at least 70% of our population with antibodies, so that it's not bouncing off of one person to the next person to the next person.
Gotcha. Anybody else want to
I'll just
chime in
add
on
on to that. You mentioned the flu shot, Keith. And the reason we get a flu shot every year is it's not the same strains of flu that are circulating every year. Every year, the really smart guys, the scientists, they get together and they decide what is the most common circulating strain of flu that we're going to see that year, because there are hundreds, maybe even thousands. I haven't looked at the data lately. But that's the reasoning why we get a flu shot every year, is because we're trying to hit the most common circulating strains of the flu. So that's the reason. It's not that our immunity is gone to that flu shot that we had last year, but there's different strains every year that we're getting that flu shot for. So I'm sure some of you guys have seen in the news, like they have identified some other strains of COVID-19 that are coming around, first in Britain, and they've seen that come to the US, and they identified another strain recently. And so far, Pfizer and Moderna have come out saying they think that their vaccine will work against these new strains. So it's hopefully not going to be the same situation as the flu, where they're having to sort of alter the vaccine every year like it is the flu. But at the end of the day, we don't know how long the immunity is going to last to COVID-19. And hopefully, everyone's continuing to collect data, and hopefully we'll have an answer on that by the time we need that, by the time that comes around and everyone's been vaccinated. So it's a little bit different than some of the other vaccines. And you also have something in your system called helper T cells that are part of your immune system as well. And we don't know how much of a role those play in protecting against immunity as well. We do know that the antibodies disintegrate over time, but how much of a role does the helper T cell function in our immune system protect against COVID-19? And that may have an impact on how long this vaccine is going to last for.
Gotcha. Dr. Rolle, you have anything on that one?
Yeah, I would just say really briefly, kind of a side point, but when you ask a bit about will we potentially need this vaccine year in, year out, I would say we all have experienced this pandemic, and there's no way at the beginning of the pandemic, or December 2019, January 2020, that I ever imagined that it would be still here. And not just still here, like still killing people, to a degree that it is. We've not seen this, we've not experienced a pandemic in my lifetime, and many of yours either. And so, the thought about whether the vaccine, we might need this boost once a year, to be honest, almost pales in comparison to the thought that coronavirus might actually still be around another year or 2 years. And so if you try to imagine about things we don't know, we know that we've spent the past year and a little bit of change with coronavirus in our face, looking real ugly. If we have some opportunity, right, to reduce the amount of infection that's been going around, then you might imagine that maybe in the following years that becomes less and less of a need. But I think it's reasonable that it may still always be around. As we've seen, coronavirus has been around and ain't been going nowhere. So it's also just kind of important to see how that's been going and kind of keep that in mind too, as you think.
Gotcha. So here's and thank you all. I want to do another brief commercial really quick. You can send in questions, but don't call me with your questions, because I'm involved in the program right now. So please text me your questions. Please, to 513-238-6257. We want to ask your question, but I can't pick up the phone and moderate. So here was something, and a lot of people have asked this, so great to see that we're all on the same wavelength. And I think this is a result of the reality that we may need to get this shot again, that people are now sending in questions along this line. Here's the next question. So I had COVID, let's say, hypothetically speaking. I had COVID. And I think MP Kolchinsky, you mentioned this, but we're going to flesh this thing out so it doesn't go over anybody's head. I had COVID. My body built up the antibodies. I won that thing, right? I'm still here. And so now, if I'm still now here and my body built up the antibodies, do I really need the vaccine? Like, why would I take the vaccine now if I just beat COVID? And there's reports that I can't potentially get it again anyway because I'm ready to go.
Well, we don't know if you can't get it again. In fact, we do think you can get it again. There has been some case reports of people who have had COVID and then subsequently several months later had it again. And so, you can get it again. It's not as common, but it is possible. And so once you've had COVID-19, Yes, we think you have some protection between, for around 3 to 6 months, but we think that protection might wane. And the type of protection you get from having COVID is different from the type of protection that you get from having this vaccination as well. So, my recommendation is to have it at least, 3, and it depends on when you're going to have access to it. Are you a healthcare professional? Are you over 65? Are you a, healthy young 25-year-old? But 3 months after you've had COVID, that's the recommendation to get the COVID vaccination when it's available to you. Obviously, if you had it this summer, you're still waiting, but we don't know how long natural immunity is going to last for. And so you can't count on that. And you can't count on not getting it again, because we have seen it. It's not common, but it has happened.
Okay. Anybody else want to just chime in on that? Hey, I had COVID. I beat COVID. I got the antibodies. Why do I need this shot now? I won. I don't need to worry about it.
Unfortunately, remember, we heard that from the White House, and it was very much dispelled as one of the myths that we have had over the last 4 years. Yes, you still can get COVID again. You're not immune. You still need to wear your mask, because while you might not get sick from COVID-19, the virus can get in your airways, and you could potentially transmit it. Not as likely, but you could. So still social distancing, washing your hands, wear a mask. But and yes, during that period of time while your antibodies are building up, you could still become sick with COVID-19 even after your vaccine. So you definitely want to wear your mask. You don't want to, there have been people who said, well, I got the shot and then I still got COVID. You didn't get the shot. You didn't get COVID from the vaccine. What you might have had is that you were infected and you weren't showing signs yet. And it takes a couple of weeks. At least it shows that your antibody count does not go up for at least 2 weeks after you get the vaccine. So you still want to make sure that you're being careful. But a lot of the things that we're hearing on social media, you have to look at the whole story, because some things are just not, and no offense to someone who says that, because if they don't have the information, they can be mistaken.
Okay. Anybody else? Speaking of, and Dr. Johnson, you just kind of alluded to misinformation, and I want to stop and do a different commercial, not give my number out again, but I want to stop and really do a different commercial for those who maybe weren't here at the beginning. The reason why we are having this conversation is not with the intention of telling anyone that they have to go and get the vaccine. That is not the goal. Not at all. That's the furthest thing from our desire. The focus, though, is to provide you with education, yea, even information, so that you can make a conscious decision about what it is you want to do. There's a lot of misinformation out here. The idea that there are chips in the vials of the vaccine, and when you begin to realize that it isn't one vial per person, but that they do multiple draws out of one vial, it makes it almost impossible, right, for the nurse or the doctor, whoever's administering the shot, to actually make sure they get a microchip in that particular shot as they're giving it to you, because they have multiple people using that vial. But that's information or misinformation, if you want to classify it that way, that is out here. And we want to make sure that we are arming you with not what your cousin said or your friend said, not even what your pastor said. I was open in the beginning with saying, as a pastor, I don't feel comfortable telling anyone that they should or should not do it, because at the end of the day, if it goes well, great. If it goes bad, then guess what? My president is going to be getting a call saying Pastor Hackle told me to do this and my arm fell off. And so what I want to do is give you, what we want to do is give you the information. And if I can do another commercial on top of that, I want to thank Elder Bernard for being open to and supporting this particular conversation. And our desire, our president of this conference, our desire is to just give you all the information so that you can go make a decision. And so here's my challenge now in the midst of this commercial. The desire was not to have a bunch of individuals on the panel who disagreed about the vaccine. We would not have gotten anywhere. We would probably still be on one question right now, and there would be a huge argument on how people felt. And so here's my challenge to you. If you have individuals who feel like you should not, professionals, medical professionals who feel like you should not get the vaccine. You have my number, 513-238-6257. Give them my number. Have them give me a call. We don't mind doing a second installment, and if we need to, a third installment to hear from the other side. But we want to make sure that those are individuals who aren't just spewing conspiracy theories or anything like that, but actually have tangible research that we can tap into and then use to help, again, make a conscious decision. With that being said, we're going to go to another question. That's all right. Does the vaccine, and we may have covered this a little bit, but we'll come back around. Does the vaccine help prevent individuals from contracting COVID-19, or does it simply mitigate the symptoms of the virus? So does the vaccine prevent them from having it? And we talked about this, but someone may have missed it. Does it prevent them, or does it just mitigate the symptoms of the virus?
Basically, vaccines do not, basically what's happening is that your body has the tools to make sure that the virus does not get a foothold in your body. Does it prevent COVID? Does it prevent SARS coronavirus 2019, which is the organism? Yes, the organism can get in your body, but does it prevent severe COVID-19, which is the coronavirus disease? That's what we're looking at. You might get some virus in your nose, but remember, you have the soldiers to fight them. You have the antibodies that will not allow that virus to take over your body and start replicating your body and making you ill.
Gotcha. Dr. Rolle, I think you were going to add to that, or is that good?
Yep, good.
Good. All right. So here's another question that we gotta get to, and I'm gonna say this. The goal was an hour for this discussion, and I know that might seem like a short amount of time, but I don't want to burn anybody out as well. As it's been a long day for a lot of us, but we wanted to make sure you had this information, and we'll come back if need be. We need to get to this question of women who are pregnant and them taking the vaccine. I think this is vitally important. I was reading one report, and it said that the shots that are available right now are really for 12 and up. And so how much?
16 and up.
So 16, okay, so 16 and up. So you got 16 and up, nobody younger than that. Let's talk about a woman who's pregnant. Should she get the vaccine? MP Kolchinsky, why did you decide that you were going to wait until after you had the baby to get the shot?
So I'm 36 weeks pregnant. I'm due on Valentine's Day. And I've been anticipating this for a while because obviously I found I was pregnant this summer, and I had a sneaking suspicion that this was going to happen. Like, December or January, they were going to come out with a vaccine, and I was going to have to make a decision about whether or not to take it or not. And I've done a lot of research about it. The American College of Gynecologists have come out stating that women should not be withheld from receiving the vaccination, and that they should have a conversation with their gynecologist, their OB or their gynecologist about receiving the vaccine during pregnancy. The reason it hasn't been recommended is because pregnant women were not included in any of the studies for either the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccination. Now, Moderna did come out with a DART study, which is a specific type of study where they tested mice who were pregnant with the vaccination, and they did not find any concerns. The fact of the matter is, it hasn't been studied in pregnant women. We don't know exactly what it could do, if anything. In looking at the literature in the past, there have really been no vaccines that are, unless they were live virus vaccinations like the old shingles vaccine that we had a long time ago. But none of the vaccines are really contraindicated in pregnancy. In fact, pregnant women need to get the flu shot. They need to get a Tdap vaccination. But this is new, and pregnant women, you're thinking about two people instead of one person. I have thought long and hard about it. I prayed about it. I've consulted with my OB, and at the end of the day, she wasn't thrilled with the idea of me getting the vaccination, being so close to my delivery. And so I've chosen, at this point, I've chosen not to, although I've had second thoughts. I work for Mercy, and they're giving the vaccines, and I know I could go next week to get it done. it's crossed my mind. I may do it. I don't know. Every day I go back and forth with it. If I don't end up getting it, I will be patting down in my hospital gown as soon as the delivery is over and asking for my COVID vaccine, and we'll take it definitely when I'm breastfeeding and after I've delivered, for sure, as soon as possible. So I'm only going to be seeing patients in the office for 2 more weeks, and then I'm going to go to video visits totally the last 2 weeks. Our family has chosen to really quarantine. We don't see friends. We saw my parents for Christmas. That was it. My dad recovered from COVID at the end of November. My mom tested positive for the antibodies. But we've chosen to just be really careful. I make my husband go to the grocery store. I'm wearing an N95 mask at work. I'm taking all the precautions that I possibly can, at this point. And I don't want this decision to discourage any pregnant women from getting the vaccine if they're a healthcare worker or they're high risk, because, I think you need to have that conversation with your doctor and assess your own individual risks. And if you guys saw, Missouri is going to stage, I'm probably going to mess this up, 1B, maybe you guys, I'm not sure what they're calling it, but those 65 and over are now included, and pregnant women are considered high risk. So they're included in the next round of vaccinations. And I do know that they are collecting data on pregnant women. Over 500 pregnant women have received it so far. And, they're studying it. And so we'll have more information in the coming months about the safety of it. But yeah, that's been my personal decision. I think if my GYN had been a little bit more supportive and said, yes, I think you should get it, I probably would have. We healthcare professionals consult with colleagues who have specialists. And I'm actually very interested to know what Dr. Johnson's viewpoint is, being a pediatrician.
Yeah,
she may have a different perspective. I thought, like, do I get the vaccine because I know my baby's not going to get the vaccine for a long time? Maybe I'll pass immunity to them. Those are some of the thoughts that have been in my head as well. So it's a tough decision when you're pregnant. I would talk with your GYN and talk with, pediatrician that you're going to use and see what their thoughts are and to make the decision for yourself.
Gotcha. Dr. Johnson, do want to hear from you, and Dr. Rolle.
I think it's a choice that each parent, each mother, each family has to make. We don't know how it will react with pregnant women. I think that you have to look at your risk factors. If you are pregnant and you also are diabetic, if you're pregnant and you also have chronic hypertension, that places you at higher risk should you get COVID-19. And you might want to consider getting the vaccine. However, if you can should shelter at home, at place, if you don't have risk factors, if you don't live in a multi-generational household, those are things that would say, by all means. My daughter has chosen not to get her vaccine while she's pregnant and breastfeeding, because she has the ability to be able to be at home, and her husband's doing the shopping and everything like yours is too. So, but not every pregnant woman has that advantage. And so I think I agree with you. That decision has to be made primarily with that woman's obstetrician.
Gotcha. Dr. Rolle, you want to give any input to that? That each of you is seeing patients, and there may be a pregnant woman who walks in and she's thinking about it. So definitely want to hear.
I work primarily in the hospital, so I'm seeing patients of all types every day. I agree with Dr. Johnson and MP. Kolchinsky for sure, especially her own personal experience. I would just say, when there's concern, I think the safest thing is to look at the data, and we didn't have a lot right from the actual trials, and so all we can do is look at those who have been vaccinated and kind of see what kind of comes out of it. Knowing the science and knowing the technology behind it, the theories are that it should be safe, safer than Tylenol. But we haven't studied it, right? And we're trying to be as evidence-based as we possibly can. So the more data we get, I think the better informed that we can be. Yeah.
Gotcha. So here's what I want to do. And like I said, the goal was an hour. We're at right before an hour. I want to thank each and every one of you for being willing to participate in this conversation. We covered a lot of ground. I'm gonna share some other information with everyone. There's a lot of information out there. I'm gonna give you a presentation that was well for me to understand on the micro level. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Thank you, MP Kolchinsky. Thank you, Dr. Rolle. And I want to say that I want to give you all an opportunity to do this, because here's the thing. I've gotten text messages from Illinois. I got text messages from Colorado. I got phone calls from New York. Like there's individuals on the line from all over the place, right? And here's the thing. Each person has maybe a little bit of fear, but also something going on potentially with them, right? Where they're concerned how this thing is going to react with their personal issue, right? So if an individual has, gone through radiation and chemo and has had congestive heart failure and is dealing with diabetes and all of these other things that could be weighing on their decision, right? Want to give you all an opportunity to just give some final words to the people. Imagine, right? We're sitting in your office. It's just you and this individual as it relates to this vaccine. What's your parting words for the people before we close out? We'll start with Dr. Johnson. I'm sorry, I'll go left to right on my screen. Same way we did with introductions, that's the way we'll go with farewells.
Thank you so much for inviting us for coming up with this idea, Pastor Hackle. We've had lots of interesting conversations. What I would say to you is, number one, don't believe everything that you see on Facebook, because much of it is disinformation. And unfortunately, as a people, we sometimes seem to be magnets for misinformation. This vaccine was not made from fetal tissue, so you are not supporting abortions when you get this vaccine. This does not have a microchip in it, because microchips, the smallest ones, are 11 to 13 millimeters. The size of a 14 gauge needle, which is a needle that I wouldn't let anyone put into my arm, is only 0.23 millimeters. There's no way a microchip can be placed in the needle to go into your body. No, this is not, we do not have any evidence that this will create infertility. No, this is not doubting God taking care of you. I sincerely believe that this vaccine is an answer to the prayers that we've been making since February, March, April, that God has given us the miracle of science. The fact that this vaccine has come to market quickly shows that God has been leading. However, you have to make that decision for your vaccine. But please do not get the vaccine because of fear. Because of fear, a people perish.
MP Kolchinsky.
I just want to say thanks, Pastor Hackle, for having me. This was what I was envisioning when we had that conversation that day, was that, I wanted to give people the ability to make their own decisions with as much information as possible. And I agree with Dr. Johnson. Everybody's giving advice online, on the computer, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Families are getting together, and I would encourage you guys to reach out to your primary care physician if you have any concerns about whether the vaccine is right for you. We do know that patients who have chronic health conditions like heart failure or COPD, or who have cancer, or who have certain chronic medical conditions, are at higher risk for having more severe cases of COVID. And those are the people that we should be prioritizing. There are certain conditions, autoimmune disorders, where patients may be taking immune suppressing agents. Maybe they have rheumatoid arthritis, maybe they have psoriatic arthritis, maybe they're taking immune suppressing agents. Maybe they're on steroids, a short-term course or a long-term course of steroids. All of those individual cases need to be discussed with your primary care doctor. And a lot of times in the primary care setting where I work at, we're consulting with infectious disease and rheumatologists as well, to give patients the best information that we have out there and available. So if you have one of those, specialty cases, I've had cancer, I've had chemo, I'm on steroids, I'm on immune suppressing agents, have that conversation with your primary care doctor. If they don't have the answer, they may be consulting with specialists. We talk to our infectious disease doctor, Dr. Corey at Mercy, almost all the time about various specialty situations. He's always happy to help us out. And we consult with our rheumatologists who are helping us as well. They have the latest data about vaccines, prior vaccines that we have, and whether or not patients should get them. And so their input when it comes to this COVID-19 virus is really helpful. And I'm super excited about this vaccination, and all of my healthcare colleagues. You should see Mercy. We have a conference center, and as I walk out the door on my way out, there's lines, and people are so excited to get this vaccine. Like, we feel like these are the answers to our prayers, and that this is going to make people feel well. I feel like I'm getting emotional about it, but it's just an amazing medical feat that we've been able to accomplish. That the scientists have been able to accomplish, and I'm just very excited for what this next year holds. I know everybody has had a hard year, and personally and professionally for my family and for myself, it's been tough working, and it's been tough seeing my husband out of a job and things like that. So I'm really hoping that this vaccine will help us gain herd immunity and help us get to a better place in 2021, because the mental toll it takes on people as far as isolation goes, the amount of depression I'm seeing in patients right now is it's heartbreaking, and it's hard to help them sometimes. But this vaccine is giving me real hope for what this next year is going to bring, and I'm very excited. And if you need to reach out to me, feel free to pass along questions and concerns.
We'll do. Up until February 14th, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Dr. Rolle.
Yeah. Thanks also, Pastor Hackle, for inviting me and just kind of joining this. My parting words would be, I'm Isaiah. I'm a 33-year-old Black male. I've got a wife. I got 2 daughters. I always consider myself that person first before I consider myself a doctor. I'm always that person first. I'm always Isaiah. My nickname's Iceman. I'm thinking like everyone else thinks. And I say it to say that, when I consider this whole pandemic and this vaccine, my initial reaction was fearful. And it was like my typical rebel mentality. I'm like, I ain't taking that vaccine.
I was surprised you took it. I was surprised.
I had, there's an initial reaction that I had, which I think is typical for myself and has been typical for a lot of people that I know, like myself, like you might be, and when I kind of got over that initial reaction, I had to kind of think about it and be a little honest with myself. I think that oftentimes there can be initial reaction. I would lean towards, the young Black male part of myself that says, well, look, this country ain't for you. Look what just happened to George Floyd. Look what happened. Like this 2020 is a lot. We're talking about coronavirus. Let's forget about social justice, right? So when you think about all those things, initially, I'm like, I don't want to trust anything. You don't want to trust anything. You don't want to trust any person who ain't my mama. And so that's my initial reaction first, and then next comes my doctor. But I have to kind of pull all of it together, and then I thought about it. I put off this idea of whether I should get the vaccine or not because it wasn't even here yet. Months ago, it wasn't here. And so I just kind of mentally put off the even thought of, should I consider it and should I look at the data? Even though I have access to this information, and I can kind of look at the data myself, but I kind of put it off. But now that it was here, I had to think about it for more for myself, look at the data and being honest with myself. It is very kind of clear. I think a lot of us are very used to accepting an alternate reality or alternate picture of what's actually going on. There are a lot of myths that happen. There's a lot of, just rumors and horror stories. And I think that partly what that is just a mechanism for many of us to escape the stress of what this year has been. It's a lot easier for me to accept the alternative that, this is all a hoax, it's a myth. This is not real, because that allows me an easier alternative than the reality that coronavirus just ripped our world to shreds in 2020. And the fact that acknowledging that is stressful. Acknowledging that it's real and that my uncle just died yesterday and this is happening is a real situation. So it's much easier for me to latch on to the immediate rebel in my heart, the immediate hoax information, because what that means, if the hoax stuff is true, that means that coronavirus is not real. That means that these people didn't really die. That means it's not an actual pandemic. And so I think my natural reaction, as I mentioned before, is to be a rebel, is to think first, I don't trust this. When I stop, get over that first hump, actually think, use the data in front of me, talk to people who know what they're talking about, then I actually accept the truth. And accepting this vaccine, as it were, is synonymous with me accepting the reality of what 2020 has done to a lot of us. And, and it sucks, and I think that step alone is something that a lot of us don't want to do. Some of us who have had loved ones die maybe have accepted a little more than other of us who haven't had those touch your personal family. But in any case, it's real. I have to kind of accept that reality. And I think when it comes to your own choice, I think it's the same process. Get over that first hump of just emotion, and then just look at the data, talk to trusted people, and really figure out that decision for yourself and see how you want to protect yourself as well as the people who are around you when it comes to this coronavirus. So thank you.
All right. Well, listen, not easy to sit in that seat that you all are sitting in. Dr. Johnson, a pleasure to do ministry with you again. MP Kolchinsky, thanks for, listen, you offered, you said you come sit at the table. You came and sat at the table. So thank you so much for that. Dr. Rolle, it's interesting, man. We've been friends for a long time. This is the first time that we've done something together on this level. But man, a pleasure. I want to say to the people who are on, and I know there's a lot of individuals who maybe you still have questions. And I want to encourage you to do a couple things. I'm going to share my screen really quick one more time before we close. This was a presentation that kind of blessed me. If I can get to, it's not there. I'm going to read it to you. I think this is important for you. If you go to YouTube and you just type in NAD Health, NAD Nathan Apple David Health, there'll be an option on YouTube. COVID-19 discussion. I went there, I watched that. It's about an hour and a half. I'm just giving you what has worked for me. There's a lot of different resources, a lot of different conversations that you all can partake in, but that one worked for me as it relates to really understanding what's going on here with this vaccine. I'm gonna say this again, our intentions were in no way to make you say that this is what you're going to do, but we just wanted to have the conversation. If there are individuals who are like, hey, let's talk about the other side. Let's hear from individuals who are like, no, let's do, I'm open to that. Want to do it decently and in order. And so you got my number, 513-238-6257. You can give them my information. We'll put it together. Not afraid to have the conversation. Balanced information is always important. But I want to also say this. Go do your own research. It's easy for us to sit back and just read or listen to what other individuals are saying. Go do your own research. Allow yourself to be informed, educated on what it is that you're trying to make a decision on. Talk to your doctor. This was said over and over again. Consult your doctor. Get feedback, whether you're pregnant, whether you're dealing with other issues. Make sure that you're talking to your doctor. And then last but not least, you should actually do this before you do all of those things. Most important, more than going and reading all the information, more than talking to your doctor, make sure you pray. I do believe we serve a God who will direct us in the way that we need to go, who will give us peace that passes all understanding, and will let us know what decision is the best decision that we need to make. And with prayer, with talking to the doctor and getting information, I believe that you'll be able to make a conscious decision and then stand by your decision. So whether you get it or whether you don't, you have to make that choice. And we wanted to just facilitate you being informed so that you can make the right choice. I'm gonna say a closing prayer, and then we're going to let you all go. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you for the text that came in. I hope your questions were answered. We'll probably more than likely gonna have another conversation, if not 2 more conversations on this thing. And hopefully we'll get to a point where society is at least getting back to where we can move and have our being without masks and social distancing and having to Uber eat and have stuff delivered to us, because it's just a crazy time. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for tonight. You know, I was looking forward to this discussion, and I thank you for each panelist who was willing to sit in the seat, field the questions. I thank you for each person who took the time to jump on. And there may be some individuals who received the information that they needed to make a decision. And then there may be some individuals who are still in the valley of decision. And so I pray that you will lead them in the direction they should go to find the information that they need to make a conscious decision and then stand firm on their decision. Lord, I do know this. It's been an amazing last 12 months, filled with many downs. Definitely some ups. We still have life, we still have our being, but we've lost so many individuals as a result of this this sickness that has plagued the entire world. And so, Lord, I'm asking that you will just keep us strong, help us to endure, help us to continue to be faithful, and help us to make decisions, Lord, that represent what you would have us to do. Pour out your spirit on this world, I pray. And again, Lord, we're asking for healing. And if it means that someone needs to get the vaccine for healing, if it means that we should not get the vaccine for healing, whatever that looks like, we're asking for you to guide us and for us to follow you as you lead us. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen and amen. I want to thank all of you. I want to say one more thing. This is available on YouTube. Will be available on YouTube if you want to catch this. But thank you all so much. You have a good evening, and we'll talk to you soon.